Welcome back to Irish Illustrated Insider. We are rolling with a full house backfield today, led by Tim Priester of The Observer, John Bryce of the Daily Beacon, and Pete Sampson of DePaw Daily. I am Tim O'Malley with Irish Illustrated, and guys, I wanted to welcome you into the doldrums of the sports calendar. We are post football, pre-conference championships, and NCAA tournament. There's no baseball. NBA is tanking, and we will see our next football helmet in 36 days. So we're going to stay off the field, and I want to throw it to John Bryce here because I did some quick research over the breakfast table, Pete. And on February 18th, Notre Dame hired a running backs coach last year, Jawan Sider. On March 4th, Brian Mason, their special teams coordinator, left for the Colts. So there is still room for movement in Notre Dame's coaching staff. Do we have anything later on Loren Landow and Marty Biagi especially?
It's quieted quite a bit on Marty Biagi and the NFL chatter there. I think the Ravens has opted to stay in-house for their special teams coordinator and elevate their former assistant special teams coordinator. That's the one that had been most closely linked. That's the one that I know firsthand that the Ravens had done some research and talked to some people about Marty Biagi. In terms of Loren Landow, I'm checking on that again this morning. Continue to hear Raiders and Cardinals as real possibilities there. Those are the two for Loren Landow. He has a natural connection with Kubiak. They worked together previously in Denver. So I may get more information during the podcast this morning. I've got some text messages out, but that's where things stand there.
Pete, we at one point were asked in December total over under for coaching staff movement 2.5, and we all said way over. It is over. I don't think it's going to go way over. I think it's just going to stay over, comfortably over. Really, the only other option would be Mike Brown, who I have not heard since December any rumblings of position movement there. I know you had brought that up in December, but I haven't heard anything new from that.
I
I will.
haven't either. Yeah, I think that I realize the NFL staff is still kind of shuffling around a little bit, but I would say like if you had to choose one that I'd be most concerned about, it would be Landau at this point.
JB, you were going to say something?
Yeah, sorry. I actually literally just got a text message that says
This is like Brian Kelly getting a text during a press conference. This is great.
that Lando has acknowledged to folks that he's received several calls and text messages about the NFL, but his intent as of now is to stay put at Notre Dame.
All right.
It's a good relevant update.
Yeah, and I think it's only a matter of time with Marty Biagi. He's going to continue to be very highly coveted. Great that it appears that he's going to remain on the staff. It's just, it's like Brian Mason. And Mason had such a spectacular year. There was almost no way Notre Dame can keep him. But look, this is going to be an annual thing with Notre Dame's coaching staff. In the grand scheme of everything, it's a great thing because Notre Dame is doing good things and putting out great football teams that are coached by quality assistant coaches. So just part of the yearly shuffle, part of the January transfer portal coaching change that used to be a quiet month for us.
I think Biagi, sorry, JB, I think Biagi had Notre Dame gone to the playoff and unveiled some more of that Georgia stuff and some more of those hidden plays that we all know exist. This might have been a time that somebody would have taken a shot at Biagi, but boy, I mean, the year just ended. This year just ended, and I think that might have quelled it a little bit.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you don't have a coaching staff that other people want to pick from, you probably won't have a coaching staff for very long. It won't be yours.
We were briefly said on Monday, I believe, before Pete wasn't on this one, but the 6 obvious NFL draft combine invites went out to the 2 running backs, the 2 offensive linemen, Fields, and who am I missing? I tried to bring
Raritan,
and obviously Eli Raritan. Really, the only other guy, Pete, we thought could possibly get one would be Will Pauling, but that's more of a Will Pauling will make an NFL team rather than be invited to the podcast.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that on a podcast I went right before the Super Bowl. Just like the NFL teams would love to see these like lower school guys on the same field as the first, second round, third, fourth round type picks. So I think that kind of squeezes out Will Pauling, Jared Dawson, Devonta Smith, because there's enough tape on them at a power 4 level to know what you're getting. Whereas like the guy from Lenore-Rhyne, there's not. So I get it. The 6 guys that got invited, I think we all sort of was kind of a nailed on group there. I think what Texas A&M had the most at 13, and there were a handful that had a double digits. But
13's a lot. That's like
yeah, I mean, it's like I think Ohio State, Michigan maybe
yeah.
went way over that a couple years ago. But yeah, I'll be interested to see next year from Notre Dame, like how many guys just from the defense get invited, because I could see that being a huge number.
And I understand why Gabe Rubio didn't get invited to the combine, but he's going to be in a camp. They're going to want to look at him, especially if you get a a fully healthy Gabe Rubio. I think that'll. Yeah, I don't know how many heads he'll turn, but he's certainly going to get opportunities.
And I noticed, the 6 invites. I think Texas had 7. I mean, so Notre Dame in some very solid company there. There were maybe Georgia and Alabama might have had in that 11 range, and Ohio State had 11. And as Pete noted, Texas A&M 13. But yeah, next year is the year that the Notre Dame could do some really large numbers at the combine. And then I would note, just posted this to the board, Notre Dame expected to host its pro day on March 24th.
Good to know. Guys, I did not think Marcello Diomede was going to make another podcast, but he's gone ring chasing Tim Priester to Columbus and Ohio State. Hey, we should say Diomede won that kickoff job last year pretty quickly, but Eric Schmidt happens to be really good at it too, and that's probably why he's
well. He would still be number 3 on the depth chart right now, whereas at Ohio State they brought in a kicker from Baylor who was 18 for 22 last year, so he will handle field goals. Pardon me.
He's number 1 then.
Yeah, well, he's definitely number 1, but I think Diomede, definitely. There's a true freshman that's come in, but they expect him to redshirt. Diomede has a great opportunity to be the kickoff guy for Ohio State. He was ring hunting, and I'm sure got a little boost in the pocketbook as well.
A lot of kickoffs at Ohio State.
A lot of kickoffs at Ohio State. You get a good chance. That's true. I didn't think about that. A lot of kickoffs at Notre Dame last year. They just
absolutely
quite a few games. That was the problem. We should mention Notre Dame basketball. We're going to talk about Notre Dame basketball here in a second with a humorous question as well. But Notre Dame basketball, it appears, will open its season next year a little early with Villanova in Rome. That is some news. I plan to be in Foxborough. Pete Sampson, are you going to Rome for the opener next year?
Unfortunately not. I think I also will be in Foxborough.
Rome or Foxborough? Where are you
headed? Definitely to New England.
Yeah, that's one you and I discussed a couple of weeks ago on the pod, O'Malley, because we were talking about Notre Dame's desire to expand internationally, and we referenced that basketball was on the forefront of that conversation, even if it doesn't seem like a very good idea or not. I don't know what the Romans have done to be exposed to Notre Dame basketball, but here we go.
On that topic, this is a fantastic Twitter question from Tom Simunic. Can we skip the basketball segment this week, is what he asked. And I said, no, we cannot skip that yet. So I have a question for you guys, and it comes from Hayden Adams Z, who's a Lexington native and longtime contributor to Irish Illustrated Insider. I believe he worked for the Observer as well. Notre Dame men's basketball currently has no identity, but what should the identity realistically be to have a modicum of watchability and, dare I say, some respectability coming to the program? It's a good question about establishing an identity. Let's say, because we didn't answer this question very well one time it was posed. Let's say everyone comes back. They can come back. And they bring in one viable transfer. So they bring in a 6th-man transfer. Is that fair to do it that way? Bring in a 6th man. Big guy. What's the viable identity? What's the viable identity next year? If they bring in a tout with not that type of rebounding but better free throw shooting. How's that?
Well, like they should be better fundamentally. They're a terrible free throw shooting team. And then the one that's frustrating, I think the most for me is the assist to turnover ratio, which is 17th out of 18 teams in the conference. A great case study is watch that game the other night with SMU. Watch the ball movement on the offensive end for SMU, and then watch the ball movement on the offensive end for Notre Dame. There's no comparison. I think these are fundamental things that are not getting any better. And free throw shooting, seriously, Notre Dame is 14th in the conference in free throw shooting. These are just fundamental aspects of the game that are not being tended to.
I couldn't agree more, especially when Micah Shrewsbury was brought in with this reputation as this immense basketball knowledgeable person who is going to have Notre Dame playing the quote unquote right way. And we just don't see that. They don't share the ball well at all. They don't have an identity, and it's year three. And I don't understand how you're in year three of a program trying to put your stamp on it, and you're not close to having put any sort of stamp on it except massive underachiever.
I don't. The mismanagement of roster construction in the front court is staggering to me. To hear him talk, I think it was at the end of the Florida State game when they left Tout in there inexplicably to get fouled, can't shoot free throws, and Shrewsbury to talk about, well, we only have a couple bigger players who can catch the ball in traffic.
That was bad.
And one of them sitting next to me, Harrelson, who fouled out, and I get it was a BS fifth foul. But I mean, Carson Tout is it. I mean, sometimes you hear announcers talk about like, well, they lost Kebajai. I'm like, they lost Kebajai. Like that doesn't that doesn't help you. So I just think maybe the Tommy Ottoman, the redshirting big from Minnesota could help a little bit. Gonardine Solango has been hurt pretty much all season at La Lumiere, so I wouldn't expect a lot for him out of the gate. I just, Pat Garrett is your general manager, and you're supposed to have all this like brain power to throw at the problem, and essentially say, well, we got Carson Tout, and that's it. I don't get it. I don't understand the roster construction of the program at all.
And to follow up real quickly on that ties in, Pete, to the fact that we just saw them make that inexplicable decision at the end of the Florida State game, in part of because inexplicable roster construction on the heels of the scorebook snafu in the game at Louisville, which again wasn't the difference, but it's just it's such a microcosm of what this program is right now.
Pete, in response or adding to what you said about the front court, we have a question from NAB 1009, and I included one of his questions in today's Thursday Thoughts, and he says, "Is this the worst front court among the power conferences?" I'm not going to go through every power conference and add it up.
But you might not have to.
But when you start putting the numbers together of Notre Dame's front line, and I realize it's more of a guard-oriented game today, but I mean somehow, partly because of Tout, they're like sixth in the conference in rebounding margin, which is like, I don't know how they're doing it with length from some of their guards. It's not the front court that's getting it done.
We're going to give Tom his wish and move on from basketball here as we move into the end of segment one. Guys, this is a nice question from Otzer Poll. He wants us to predict the storyline or subject matter that will account for media coverage over these 3 periods of time. Let's start with from now until spring practice starts. I think we'd agree on that one, that it's offensive staff stays intact, defensive staff is overhauled.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the story is the staff until spring practice starts, in which case then it goes more to the roster itself.
And from spring practice until the blue gold game, Priester, what would you say?
Well, I think maybe the same thing. I think 2 and 3 might end up being a backup quarterback. I mean, are we going to be saying, wow, those guys are young, they look young, what are they going to do? They've got to add a veteran presence at quarterback. I think that's a strong possibility of being a storyline coming up.
Yeah, I would say, obviously, number one, as you guys have said, number two, beginning of spring ball till the blue gold game is going to be backup quarterback. How do the running backs look? What can we glean what we think the offensive line composition is going to be? And then how does those new guys look on the defensive interior?
I think I'll be honest, like I'm not sure I really care about the backup quarterback during spring practice. I'm more interested in like the wide receivers that are working with CJ Carr. I think that's why there's so many new bodies there. Like, what, and like in some ways I would include Jane Greathouse as a new body because he didn't do anything with Carr last year. Yeah. So there's a lot of new stuff there. I mean, tight end is part of that story too. So, what you're putting out there, whether you're 11 personnel, 12 personnel, with CJ Carr, I think is going to be really interesting to watch.
I agree with you, Pete. I think that that I actually was kind of saving wide receiver for another question. I think here, I think that's wide open in a lot of respects, especially with you're going to have Quincy Porter. You're not going to know about his physical capabilities because they won't have him in the spring. Miles Graham, a great point about Great House because you're looking for the return of Jaden Greathouse. We never saw Jaden Greathouse last year or what his capabilities are.
Yeah, I'm doing a story right now for a daily story. Great House. I mean, he was targeted 8 times in 4 games. It's not like he was out the whole year. He was targeted 8 times in 4 games. I mean, Malachi Fields was 16. Jordan Faison was 17. Eli Reardon was 11 with a 0 target in game two. That's crazy to me that there's something involved where Jaden Greathouse in the slot is targeted 8 times in 4 games. So he is a new entity coming into this. Coming off this could not have ended a year. You could not have told me this would happen last year at this time. Jaden Greathouse coming off Penn State, Ohio State. Jaden Greathouse will get hurt in October. Oh, that's too bad. What happened beforehand? Oh, he had 8 targets and 4 catches.
One memorable catch at
That seems absolutely impossible. And then I agree with you guys. From the end of spring practice to the beginning of fall camp, it is going because we will have seen the 38 new guys. That's what I think the main thing about spring ball is the 38 new guys. I'm just going to wonder about the quarterback situation for Notre Dame and if they are pursuing. I think there's 12 quarterbacks still in the portal, so they're all viable options, right, JB?
Correct.
Those 12 guys are viable options. You wonder if there's a reason one of them. I think Notre Dame will know if they need to bring one in. The unfortunate thing is when you say the young guys, Tim, it's 2 of the 3. Can't put a high school junior on your campus yet in college football. So Teddy Gerard, the one they like most, won't be here.
No, exactly, and I mean you got a whole bunch of young receivers in the spring. There's going to be guys running all around. We're trying to get our numbers straight as we're watching. And Pete said it best. Yeah, the wide receiver core is going to be fascinating to study. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 new receivers, 5 of which are freshmen.
Well, plus Bettis and Burris were not ingrained in it at all.
Right. So yeah, where are they now? Yeah, absolutely. And we'll still get questions about Cam Williams as well.
I almost said his name, but I didn't. I was able. And by the way, we did have a Cole Mullins right, and I did not include the question from.
I'm not the one saying Cole Mullins anymore. Everybody else is.
You just call him Lombardi.
Yeah.
Is it the outlet of the Lombardi? He's
the Lombardi Award,
exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Future Lombardi Award winner.
You mean the Super Bowl trophy, right?
You guys
keep the Lombardi trophy.
You guys keep bringing them up, not me.
We'll be back with segment 2. Bring up the boards. We are back with segment 2, burning up the boards. The first question from Martin Evenflow. Notre Dame's offensive success will largely rest on the shoulders of a lot of unproven but talented players. So are you more concerned about the offense or the defense with its 3 new position coaches as of February 12th?
Good, guys.
The offense for sure. I think position coaches, they've hired good ones. They lost good ones. The coordinator's back. I think we've talked about this before. I think returning your coordinator is more significant than replacing 3 position coaches, if that makes sense. Like, I think the defense had a bigger transition last year than it will this year.
Especially in August.
Yeah. So I'm not too concerned about the defense at all. I think the offense has a lot of rebuilding to do. And yet, I know we talked about sort of career snaps on our previous podcast. So I went through and totaled up the defense this year versus last year. I did the offense this morning, not at my kitchen table, but last year they returned 10,875 career snaps on defense. I expected the 2026 returning career snaps to be way lower than that. And it turned out it was 9,030, which, while lower, it's not like it fell off a cliff. So that's where Great House counts as a returning player. Cooper Flanagan counts. So I think they probably have more returning experience on offense than I would have thought, but I would still say like rebuilding the offense is more significant than replacing 3 position coaches on defense.
Yeah, I would completely agree with Pete and be as specific as to say like the offensive line. Like we continue to hear how talented it is, but we saw it last year struggle mightily in short yardage situations. It was very rare that unit just completely asserted itself and dominated football games. And so for me, that specifically is what I pinpoint because CJ Carr is so elite that I'm very confident that he will throw the receivers to an elevated level of play. But he can't do that as much with the running backs, and he can't do that with the offensive line.
virtually, I would put the things that you two said together, and that's exactly how I feel. I mean, Pete, exactly. I think we said this on a podcast you weren't on. Your defensive coordinator's returning. That is when you have to replace a coordinator. That's when everything's unsettled. These are accomplished position coaches on defense, and what we said during break here, Tim. I mean, you have a great secondary. You have a very, very good linebacker core, and Charlie Partridge. This isn't his first goat roping. I mean, he's going to piece together a really good defensive line. So, not worried about that. But what you said, JB, offensively, everything starts with CJ Carr, and so that is first and foremost is the most important piece. But you've got to find some continuity along the offensive line. You got to develop some chemistry between Carr and the receiving core, and the running back core is not as star-studded as it was last year. So my greater concern is on the offensive side of the ball, but you still get that starting point with CJ Carr.
Yeah, what I find interesting is we spent a little bit of time last segment talking about questions at wide receiver. Other than CJ Carr, the wide receiver room is in the best shape at the top because they have Faison and Greathouse. Like Cooper Flanagan has to be healthy. Aeneas Williams has to be as good as we think he can be. He has to prove it, and he needs a backup or a 1B to go with him. The offensive line's missing its two best players, two of his three best players right now, and will be missing them all spring and maybe into some summer in Jagusa and Craig. So there's questions all over the offense except for CJ Carr, and this is a good test to see because you'd rather have CJ Carr and questions everywhere else than, I think we're looking pretty good everywhere, and I just have no idea who the quarterback's
going to be. When one of his wideouts runs one of those up and outs, CJ Carr will get him the football. I don't give a damn. I don't care. I don't care what receiver on the list it is. Run the route, he'll get you the football.
Next question is from Nab 1009, and now he's all over this podcast as for the first time ever. He asks, rate the coaching staffs from the start of the Freeman era till this upcoming year. So the first one is the Reese Golden-led group going through now, if you're trying to time it out.
This is a tough question.
There's five
because it's like I realize people have strong opinions on Reese, regardless, but then he went on to Alabama and is now an offensive coordinator in the NFL. So I think that sort of dismissing that as like, wow, he only won 8 games with Drew Pine, or like, actually, that's pretty impressive. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for this one. I think Freeman has had some really good staffs, and I think this should be another one of those really good staffs. But I struggle to be like, this one's better than that one. It was the 2024 one the best because they went to the national championship game. I guess, but is Joe Rudolph better than Harry Hiestand? I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. This is a good question. However, I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I saw this question and I can't begin to rate the all of them. I would point to 24 as what I believe is the best staff, even though you were transitioning to Mike Denbrock and it was year one, but you still had Al Golden. You still had Dylan McCullough. You had brought in Mike Brown at that point. I like the composition of that. That was the year that special teams were really, really good again for Notre Dame, like they were in 22 with Brian Mason. So I would have 2024 as my number one Freeman era staff, and then there's pros and cons for all the others.
Brian Mason was on the 2022 staff. That was a spectacular year for special teams. Al Golden, defensive coordinator, but it was his first year. Definitely years 2 and 3 were better. Mike Mickens was on all of these staffs, so you have that. You have that plus. I think I would have to pick. I mean, you can't pick 2023. Jared Parker was the offensive coordinator, and that I don't think you can make that pick. I have to pick. I have to agree with JB in 2024 when you add it all up, because you're comparing positions and you trade off Mason for Biaggi, et cetera, et cetera. But I think when I add it all up, and then the outcome of the season, I'd have to go with 2024.
Yeah, I would say like the 23 was the outlier as the worst one, but the other ones I think were all good.
2024, your question marks where Mike Denbrock is coming in,
Yeah.
new offensive coordinator. You're pretty okay with that, right? When Mike Denbrock's coming in. And Max Bulla. And you knew Max Bulla was going to be good. He was coach of the linebackers the year before anyway, as he was in his first press conference. So if you look at it that way, if your question marks are Denbrock coming back from just coaching the Heisman Trophy winner versus a new offensive coordinator in 2023, and then Chris Ash replacing the most successful one-year coordinator in Al Golden in a very long time, you got to go 2024. And I think 2025, you would have to say the only reason you would rate that second to last would be because of what happened. I don't think anyone would have rated it second to last going into the
Well, I
season.
mean, that is a reasonable thing to use as a criteria. What happened?
It is. It is. We're supposed to be comparing this one to it, and I mean, Chris Ash was the only guy last year that I feel like people were pretty confident that they would hit the ground running a lot better than they did.
Yep.
All right. Question number 3. I don't know if this is a radio call sign or what, but WVFI DJ03, which player that transferred out of Notre Dame this year is most likely to have Pat Coogan type success, and why? T.O., let us start with you.
Pete Sampson had the same one because he's texted me on it before. Josh Burnham. And he's at IU with Kurt Signetti, and there's my reason why.
I don't think there's any other real choice, is there, other than Burnham? I wrote down.
You don't have Daniti here?
No, I actually did not. No, I actually wasn't.
79 touchbacks.
Concerned. I mean, Burnham's an established player. I really liked Cree Thomas last spring, and then he didn't do much in the fall. I don't know. I don't think you can really come up with a legitimate candidate beyond Josh Burnham.
Totally agree.
I mean, look, Kenny Minchie's going to get some run at Kentucky.
Yeah, that was the other guy I was going to bring up.
Oh, that's fair. That's
Burnham,
fair.
Yeah.
I like
just
Burnham.
Based on the opportunity he's going to have.
And I'm excited to see Kenny. Yeah, I'm excited to see Kenny Minchie work with Will Stein. I think that's very intriguing to me.
He's the guy I want to watch most, but Burnham's going to get a lot better matchups weekly than Kenny Minchie is.
Yeah.
Where he's
but massive opportunity for Kenny Minchie.
Oh, and it's great that it worked out. I mean,
I mean that during a season we're so busy with what's happening with the current team. We got guys like Tom Zwiller, following what's happening with transfers and guys in the NFL. But Kenny Minchie's got a huge opportunity. I'm looking forward to seeing him playing quality football.
Yeah, it's like we didn't get to know him enough either. Like we were all rooting for Angeli, obviously, going at Syracuse, but I mean, Minchie just seemed like such a affable person. By the way, Kenny Minchie's second game is Alabama. His third game is at Texas A&M. His sixth game is LSU. Seventh is Oklahoma. Eighth is Vanderbilt. Ninth is at Tennessee. 10th is Florida. At Missouri and versus Louisville.
Whew.
Rivalry game. So he also could have a nice 5-touchdown start maybe against Youngstown State and beef up those stats before it gets harder.
We do get to see KK Smith at Notre Dame Stadium again, though.
That's right. And Max Bulla, who will have a bigger impact on the game.
Another podcast question.
Yes, it is for February 19th.
My answer is Bulla. All right, we have a question from CMU Pence fan. If you could get an honest answer from Marcus Freeman off the record, what non-NFL question would you ask him about?
On the field, I would ask him about what happened from near the end of August camp to Arkansas week defensively. Break everything down for me, and how did things change? And did you change a bunch of stuff at the end of camp as heavily, not reported, but as heavily reported, surmised, guessed?
Reported? Yeah.
Yeah, purported.
Yeah, I think that it's the same as I think it was somebody asked about our New Year's resolutions, and I made it for the staff, not for myself. And it's just like, what are you doing in August that when the season starts, you're like, it didn't look at all like what we thought. So I think just sort of an analytical, introspective conversation about what you do in camp, why you do it that way, and why when the season starts, maybe things don't look how you thought. I think that's a growth opportunity for Marcus Freeman. So I'd be interested to sort of see how he would answer a question like that.
Yeah, we got to hear some of his off the record comments about maybe other coaches that he's had awkward press conferences with last spring. So that was super
That was number
enlightening
one
and
back then.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was super enlightening and enjoyable. Honestly, I think I would probably go the direction of, and look, Notre Dame has invested heavily. It's spending a lot on its roster, but how far away is Notre Dame from Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Texas, Alabama, maybe Ohio State, some of these other places in terms of
Is Alabama
roster
there, you think?
investment? I do.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering. There are some people complaining about Alabama not having enough NIL recently, but maybe they were comparing it to the previous NIL era where they had more money going into the NIL.
Yeah, I mean, like I think I
Joking.
was told Texas A&M last year was 42 or 44 million in its roster. We know that Texas Tech was very brazenly 54 million.
Yeah. I feel like
So
Texas
that
Tech
would
is
be
the one that offends most coaches. Would you agree with that? That Texas,
probably.
yeah.
But I mean, there's some crazy ones out there. I would, will we find out LSU's sticker price this year? Because we know Brendan Sorsby got 6 million to go to Texas Tech, and Sam Levitt is in the 4 to 6 million range now, being at LSU.
I would be very interested to hear about a little wrestling tournament in Mishawaka.
I think we know what happened there, Morris. So it's
No,
good. Yeah.
but I would love to.
Oh, you
No,
like
we
the,
know.
you like that.
I just want to hear his perspective on that. That question, if we get the same opportunity that we did, which we probably will, I don't know how you don't. I don't know how we don't ask that question. And also,
If someone from Notre Dame's listening, could you make sure that I'm in Priester's group for that? Thanks.
because that'll be a lot of fun. That would be
Actually,
fascinating.
the group last time was the four of us and Matt, right? It was the five of us in
Freeman,
there together. Yeah, the four of us and Matt. And I'm going to say if that happens again this year, remember you get like 15 minutes on the record and 15 off. As soon as everybody asks one question on the record, I'm just going to step in and say, okay, it's time for off the record, everybody. Because it is. I'll write a real small story and I'll hear a lot more good things. So that's what I'm looking forward to next time. Our question coming up from Maltese Irish. Of the new transfers with more than 1 year of eligibility remaining, so that would be 7 of them, how many do you predict will finish their college careers with the Irish? This is a great question. It was actually on the Rick Neuheisel show. Who's Neuheisel with? He does a good job. I'm blanking on who Rick Neuheisel's on.
I am too.
And I feel badly because he's a Notre Dame fan. But this is actually a question on their show in terms of volatility in the market.
Well, I definitely believe Keon Keeley will finish at Notre Dame. Is that how the question's asked?
Yeah, how many of the
Finish
7?
their careers. Yeah. Oh, how many? I feel real strongly about Keeley. I'm hearing really good things. I asked a question recently about should Keeley have been at Notre Dame all along? Is he a fit? And I got a very affirmative answer on that. I think Brew as well. I really like what I think initially I wasn't as high on him as I am now. The more I studied him, but definitely Keon Keeley. How many? Is that the question?
Yeah, over 3.5.
I haven't thought about. They just got here. I haven't thought about who's leaving.
Well, I think it's not a personality thing as much as think of all the things that can make a player leave a college.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know. Maybe. Well, let me just throw it to you guys.
Over 3.5.
Well, I would say Jaden Sanders, Quincy Porter, Mylan Graham really haven't done anything in college. So, those would be the ones where I think Notre Dame will have to get an evaluation of okay, what did we get here? They're not that far off from being a high school recruit, really. The other guys are, even Tion Gray, he played a lot in big games. So you kind of know what you're getting there. Brew, obviously, but those other 3, I think, are a little bit more wild cards. That doesn't mean I'm predicting them to leave or anything. I think it's just an evaluation process going to have to take place by Notre Dame of these incoming guys. That's a little different than what they've had in the past where, well, we know what we're getting from Riley Leonard. We know what we're getting from Malachi Fields. These guys are just sort of different.
Yeah, I agree there, and I would say the question's a little more nuanced because it's not up to just one side or the other.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. It doesn't matter if you're a fit if they don't want you.
It can be, yeah, exactly right. It can be you think you can go get paid somewhere else, and it could be You know what? We like what we have coming up. We think that Burgess is going to be a star, and so we like what we're homegrowing here or whatever. And so I would take the over at 3.5, but I would probably settle in the four-ish range and expect a little more than half of those seven guys with multiple years left to finish at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I would take the over 3.5, but I'd take under 4.5. One reason to take the over is, I mean, Porath would have to be terrible not to come back for his senior year at kicker. I mean, you could lose a coaching staff, and if the kicker is good, he's going to stay at Notre Dame to kick his senior year. But yeah, this is a different world. This is not just like, oh yeah, he likes it. He really enjoys himself here because that's I
I
not enjoy
think
it so much.
I think great point by you, Pete. That Graham and Porter are essentially freshmen. I mean, they've only caught a handful of passes on the collegiate level, and now they're thrust into a different situation with a bunch of bodies. I mean, there could what if some of these, what if Caden Finley emerges right away? I think he has the ability to maybe do that. You got five freshmen in early. The opinions about who are the frontline guys at receiver could change pretty quickly this spring.
I think it's a good sign for Notre Dame for the next 2 years if 6 of the 7 do stay the whole time. It means I think that they played well. Notre Dame wanted them back. They stayed. And the NFL doesn't count. Leaving, this means transferring. The NFL doesn't count. If you go to the NFL, you did your job when you came. So I think that's great. If Notre Dame, if you can keep 6 of the 7 through graduation, I think that's a great sign. If it's 1 of the 7, it's probably not a good sign at all.
Question number 6 from longtime contributor Malloy on base. What defensive issues from 2025 are these new hires best positioned to fix? TP, I would like to start with you.
What are the problems on defense?
Pass rush with 4.
Yeah.
Pass rush with 4. Okay, well but like the defensive tackles ended up. I mean, Notre Dame was good against the run. I don't know. I think pass rush with 4. Yeah, that solves a lot of problems heading into the season.
Yeah, I think that's their best hire was Partridge, and the position that has the most growth opportunity is the defensive line. So put those two things together. I think that's the issue that they're in the best position to fix.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I'm not going to argue that you could have upgraded it. I don't know, linebacker. I like Max. And this is linebacker is a great hire as well. I thought if Max Bullis stayed, nobody would have said they need a new linebackers coach though. So let's not do any revisionist history there. And Al's a good position coach too. But I mean, Charlie Partridge is renowned for being position coach there. But there's no way it's going to take years. I don't care what players he has. You're going to tell me somebody just upgrade over Mike Mickens at defensive backs coach.
Yeah.
Agreed. I don't even know what are you fixing in the secondary anyway?
I was going to say, like, what's the fix there that didn't get fixed after the first 2 weeks of the season?
Yeah, it was already fixed, but they certainly had massive issues in the first 2 games with personnel choices, and Mickens would be involved in that because you can't tell me you went through camp and thought that was going to work. I know Malachi Tony's 10 times better than people thought he was going to be for game number 1, but Carson Hobbs got worked, and Christian Gray had a horrible Texas A&M game, and he couldn't have been hurt yet.
Yeah. So
that missed tackle and the face mask were 2 of the biggest plays. They were 2 of the 3 biggest plays of the game, other than Heinisch getting tackled.
Yeah, I completely agree with the Partridge answer, and also would contend he's got a lot more clay to work with, and therefore he can build out a much longer runway.
Jalen Stroman had a little bit to do with that long pass play with Texas A&M too.
Yeah, but it should have been a 20-yard game. Christian Gray was it
was terrible. It was bad.
I've seen of a good team.
It was terrible.
Yeah, and then the face mask killed them. The guy.
But again, like we're talking about overreaching issues on the defensive side of the ball. Pete, 4-man rush. I think like Brew. I think Brew's a guy that ends up making plays because of what's happening around him. He's not necessarily a guy that's gonna shoot a gap. He's got a really nice, quick sidestep, but I think he will benefit greatly from a Charlie Partridge collective coached group together, because he will feed off of the attention that has to be paid to a Keon Keeley or a Boubacar Traore.
if they have a four-man rush that's successful, like the 2018 team, they're going to be playing for the championship. Their secondary is phenomenal. Kingston, Villalba, and Awesome will be back at the back seven. They'll be. I mean, that's a wrap on that with the defense because the secondary is far better and deeper than the 18 team, and we love that secondary. The starters were really good on that secondary. And Julia Love turned out to be a pretty good player, by the way, going forward.
We have a question from Mellow Mushrooms. Last year at this time, we had what seemed to be a two-quarterback competition between Carr and Angeli, but Minchie's spring performance, by all accounts, changed that. What's this year's version of that? What are we missing at a certain position that will become evident by late April?
I think I'll answer first. I'll go with maybe the running back room having more quality depth than what we realize right now. Maybe I'm misguided in that, but I'm very intrigued by Javian Osborne and Jonas Walton. What the coaching staff has been so high on Nolan James. What's his off-season improvement? How much sturdier is he? Can he handle that number 2 role? Keaton Young's, apparently in some solid shape and making nice ground back from his ACL recovery. He's still months away from being a factor in that room. But for the sake of answering this question, I'll go with the running back room. Obviously, desperately missing Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, but still having a nice cast of candidates there.
I mean, running back's the answer, but like what they do at nickel is interesting to me. DJ McKinney's not here, so does that impact what you could do? Maybe moving somebody around. I don't know. Obviously you got Dallas Golden. I think for a freshman, he did fine, but they need more than for a freshman to be attached to their nickel next year. So I think that's kind of one of those position battles that is maybe not getting enough intrigue at this point.
Yeah, the possibility of Gray there with McKinney here would have been great to watch in the spring.
Yeah. That's the disappointing part of it. Yeah.
Because they're none of them are nickels. Dallas Golden wasn't a nickel until he was made a nickel, and then he became a nickel. he did a great job for a guy that was never a nickel, and a good job for a freshman. Pete, that's the way to look at Dallas Golden, but that's no longer the barometer you're looking for. God, they have. I just think last year we thought there was no problem whatsoever at nickel. God, Carson Hobbs is a great backup nickel. You got Devonta Smith.
But like if we were sitting here saying, well, okay, Dallas Golden's definitely the projected nickel. I mean, I think you'd feel pretty good about that. I realize that he barely played last year and he did some good things, but Dallas Golden, I mean, he was the guy coming in a freshman class last year that I wanted to see the most, and he lived up to a lot of that.
I think he's got a chance to be really good. I think that's a development story that needs to happen. He's kind of one of those guys where spring practice does really matter. So that's something I'll be interested to watch.
Pete, who do you like at kickoff return? We discussed this Monday, and you obviously were not present. So I'm just curious, like, who would be your candidates there at kickoff return?
Kickoff return, yay.
Sorry.
I mean, I guess like some of the Osborne, Walton, like I don't have a problem putting a freshman back there. There just aren't that many opportunities to return kickoffs. So I mean, Dallas Golden did that kind of stuff in high school, but the violence of that position, I think I would rather put a backup running back, and we got a few options they could trot out there. I think
it's so interesting that for 3 years, like they've had Price, who was very good. Jaden Harrison, who was renowned for it, then didn't do anything until he had the biggest kickoff return in the last 35 years at Notre Dame. So that was a pretty big deal. And then Price, who was great at it. It's just an underrated aspect of the teams you don't think about because you never get a punt return. But the kickoff return it was so interesting. And Price was great at it last year. We kept expecting Harrison, and well, he delivered much more important than anybody else. That kickoff return is hard to beat. I mean, Tim, if you're doing a top 10 kickoff returns in Notre Dame history that mattered,
yeah, well, they don't get much bigger than that. L. Hunter in 1973, which none of you guys remember that, but in fact, I just saw a replay of that the other day, and I thought, damn, I thought he was fast. And he was fast then, but you see guys now, and His 93-yard kick return was instrumental in Notre Dame winning the national title over Alabama.
Our next question is from K Huff 8740. For years, the narrative around Notre Dame and five-star recruits has been that ND might get one occasionally, but those recruits just prefer an easier path to the NFL offered by other schools. Now ND seems to be getting an influx of five stars through recruiting and the portal. Other than the obvious answer of Marcus Freeman, what has changed? Do you have anything on that? As a former recruiting reporter for the DePaul Daily?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to be like other than Marcus Freeman because that's
exactly
pretty important. But I mean, look, I think their pivot in the NIL has been significant because this is like, I think why Brian Kelly wasn't getting 5 stars versus why Marcus Freeman wasn't getting 5 stars at the beginning of his tenure to why he's getting them now are like 3 different stories. Because I think that, you go back to Peyton Bowen, Keon Keeley the first time around, Dante Moore. It's not like they weren't getting 5 stars to visit or commit Deuce Knight. It's just they couldn't close the deal. I think the closing the deal part is an NIL story as well. So that I think is a big change about kind of where Notre Dame is right now in that realm of recruiting.
Yeah, when I look at this question, I have a 4-part answer. Number 1 is Marcus Freeman. Number 2 is Marcus Freeman. Number 3 is NIL. And number 4 is they've had a freshman All-American almost every single year under Marcus Freeman. So guys not only want to go where they can get paid, but they want to go where they can get played. And Notre Dame is doing both of those.
Yeah, you could point before. You could go to Joe Alt under Brian Kelly and Kyle Hamilton under Brian Kelly. I mean, they've had freshman All-Americans for a while now.
Right. And Marcus was here in 21 when Alt was a freshman All-American. So he gets part of that transition credit. And then you go to Ben Morrison. Blake Fisher was maybe almost or was a redshirt freshman All-American. I can't remember. So they've had a number. And then obviously more since then, Leonard Moore and others. So
Michael Mayer too. 2020. Yeah. Michael Mayer. Gosh.
Yeah.
Which Notre Dame player said that Marcus Freeman is making Notre Dame cool or cool again. I don't know if everyone was cool, but who said that?
Was it Christian Gray? Or I thought it was a DB. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I was thinking Jeremiah Love. I don't know.
I think I remember Love saying something like that in something along
interviews. Yeah, something along those lines. It's hard and certainly, I mean, it's 2026. NIL is massive. And Notre Dame's made a significant move in that area, but 95% is Marcus Freeman.
I would not go that far. I would go Marcus Freeman 1, NIL 2, Marcus Freeman 3, and winning 2024 was huge for Notre Dame. You can't get.
Yep.
They were offering $100,000 to guys that were getting $900,000. Marcus is not getting any of these guys for $100,000 when someone's being offered $1 million. And I can name 3 people on the team right now. Like, that is no chance. You can't say, here's $100,000. Miami's giving me $1 million. Here's $100,000. Thanks, dude. You're cool. See you later. Like, that's impossible.
Stay in touch.
I cannot get on board. But Marcus is 1, but NIL's got to be 2, and he can throw in there for 3.
I remember talking to Marcus about NIL and high school recruiting in the early days, and their pitch was quite clearly, come here, be the guy, and then you get paid.
Yeah.
The you get paid is now at the beginning. And I don't think recruiting would have this, they have 5 stars this cycle, depending on where you look. I don't think that change happens without that being part of the formula.
You have to level the ground. You don't have to offer more, but you have to give somebody hope. I mean, $1 million for $100,000 is just
well. And speaking of, if I could, speaking of leveling the ground, Notre Dame men's basketball desperately needs to level the not the ground, I guess the basketball court.
Huh? No, but they spend
a lot. Oh, what are you saying?
In order to have a complete roster.
Oh, their 2 best players are $2.5 million, right?
They're a lot. Like, they spend. Like, Notre Dame men's and women's basketball. They're not.
They may have spent on 2 players because you had to spend big on those 2 players. But how's the rest of the roster look?
I think it's a
Probably.
roster construction issue. I don't. I may have heard something differently than JB on the women's program though, in terms of how much they spend. I'm not sure that they're spending
Well,
because I mean you remember women's they're trying to compete with Connecticut.
Right.
Notre
Yeah, I'm
Dame
not
men's
saying
trying
we're
to
up
is trying
there.
to be better than
Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
that's
Yeah.
a good point. But Notre Dame
Yeah.
right now is saying we have to sit down and put our heads together and come up with a plan for men's basketball.
Yeah, they need more. They need to pay more than Burton and Harrelson, and then you can talk about how. But I mean, it's how many can you pay in basketball?
Well, and has basketball been savvy enough to engender the support that Marcus Freeman was very savvy in cultivating
There was.
early in his time? And that's a rhetorical question, by the way. Just in case that wasn't clear, and it has nothing to do with Cole Mullins.
You don't think the same support is there for the Notre Dame men's basketball program as Marcus Freeman's football program right now, or the women's?
I mean, like just not to hijack this, it's an interesting thought experiment. It's like any money spent on basketball is money not spent on football. Is that a good investment?
That is all over our message board, so I think it's an interesting thought experiment too.
It's on campus too. It's on campus.
So
Yeah.
this is okay to hijack because people want to know this. How does that work? How does that work? You're not.
I don't
gonna,
have a good answer for it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's
I don't either. You're not going to get much outside NIL like Jeremiah Love's New Balance deal in basketball. So you're really taking it out of the pot, right?
Except for like that tournament in Vegas, like the players tournament. That's guaranteed NIL money, which is why Micah Shrewsbury has done it now 3 years in a row and is doing it again next year. So give him credit for that. But yeah, it very much is a real topic of conversation on campus, like with upper reaching people. Like, are we doing football a disservice by spending on this? And then the way it was put to me is like you're spending on football collectively, men's and women's basketball collectively, and everything else is individually. Maybe Pete's heard differently, but that's the way it was spelled out to me. That those three programs get team funding. Every other program gets some individual funding.
So Cole Serta would be the third guy on the current team you'd have to pay because he'll have offers plenty of places, and he'll want to stay at Notre Dame. He'll get a hometown discount. But I mean, how much are you getting somebody outside of those three guys to come in and taking it away from Notre Dame's football pot? I don't think it's good business to do it at all.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, that's where you just have to be better in the portal than they have been. There's got to be somebody in the Ivy League. Like, you can't tell. There's not a Paul Atkinson out there that you can't find, or intrigue. I think so.
I think finding a Paul Atkinson from the Ivy League's pretty damn difficult. He was really
That's
good.
true too, Tim.
He was really good. When I saw his film before he came in, I thought he's really good.
He was great too. He was a great interview when we remember we asked Atkinson how he's adjusting to classes. He started laughing. It's not the same for the guy that graduated from Yale coming in to adjust to some classes.
Barely attending them.
You know, and like Alaco was a nice addition, but again, we always talk about, you know, that guy would make a good number 7 or number 8 or whatever. He might have been a little bit, you know, to the forefront a little bit more.
He was like a team leader. He was like a team leader.
Yeah, Atkinson. I think those guys are really, really difficult to find.
Our final question, I saved it for the Full House Backfield podcast from Tally Alley C. Could you expand more on your interactions with sources? I'm curious about the frequency of text and call interactions and how much it's maybe you reaching out versus getting inbound calls. On a related note, what do you think the ballpark split is between source staff, like ND staff versus industry colleagues, self-proclaimed insiders? But let's start with the interaction of sources. Then we can get into some fun. The last part is name some fun stories where they were totally wrong.
Well, nobody's working the phones like John Bryce, so let's start right there.
That's a little different. But go ahead, JB.
I will say this to this question. It's a good point. One of the best feelings for me from a professional standpoint is when a very valued source needs something from me. Like, and it's not even about keeping a scoreboard. It's just like you have these authentic relationships. You want to feel like you're not constantly asking and that you're not reciprocating with anything. Like, one of my big things is like phone numbers. I love helping agents get phone numbers. I'm waiting on one right now to try and help an agent out with a phone number for a coach on the West Coast. So hopefully that happens soon and I'm able to help. That for me is it. I told somebody yesterday in Nashville that I was on the phone with. I was like, it's very much a love hate, but if my phone is not ringing or if I'm not getting text messages, especially this time of year, I'm probably not employed for very long. So November through February, I've mentioned before, I literally sleep with the phone beside my pillow. That's just part of it.
Candy
But
Crush.
it's authentic. It's authentic relationships. I mean, the best thing about me being at the AFCA convention middle of last month was getting a lot of FaceTime with a number of different agents and coaches, and visiting with a head coach whose team's been on Notre Dame's schedule the last couple of years. I spent 2 hours one-on-one with him. I embedded at San Diego State last week, Thursday and Friday. I got to do their beach workout with them on Friday. I didn't participate, trust me, but I was there. They had a Navy SEAL on hand. That was really freaking dope for me. So those are, but it better be rooted in authenticity, or you're not going to last long, and those people aren't going to return your phone calls. I do have a real freaking funny story to close this with, though, here in just a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even close to John on this stuff. I feel like it's easier, and I don't know if this is really a strength of me as a reporter either, because I often find that I have an easier time cultivating sources with people who have left Notre Dame than opposed to when they're here, when I can actually use them more efficiently. That's kind of a weird part of the deal, but which I have never really quite understood why it is that way, but so it goes. But those, I mean, that's how you end up being able to those relationships you get to do and embed with Miami of Ohio for Notre Dame week, or you get to go down to Nashville and do something with Clark Lee for his first game. So that stuff matters a lot. Usually it's my just sort of general rule is like, if I'm going to be critical of you, I would be willing to say it to your face. And I think people 99% of the time respect that position in terms of, how I try to do my job.
I'm entering my 45th year of covering Notre Dame football, so the evolution of sources reaching out to me and me reaching out to them has gone in a lot of different directions over that time. I don't work the phones like I once did. I feel like I have to reach out more now. I think I reach out more now to people than vice versa, just because of the evolution of my time in the business and surrounding myself with people that do these kind of things. I don't know. It's gone in a lot of different directions over time.
Unfortunately, I think the majority of the things I get, I have to vet like in 5 different ways because they're from people that don't want me to use it, So it's something like
There's a lot of that. Yeah,
it's
there's
like,
a
well,
lot of that.
this exists, so I have to look at it. I have learned I didn't take long to learn this, but this is when I'm going to a story. I mean, the disgruntled parent is always the good source to give information that may or may not be true. And unfortunately, if you follow the disgruntled parent, you're going to be wrong half the time too.
That's dangerous.
But the disgruntled parent will also have some news. You're like, oh, you're kidding. And then, and then you look into it and it could be there. Pete and I, we aren't going to say it, but in 2011, had the exact same main source because he called us a lot separately. I was not working with you. You were Irish Illustrated. I was Irish Eyes. We had the same parent that would give us stuff. And it would just be like, "There's no blanking way this is true." And so
Yes.
it would always be funny to get the call, but every once in a while it would it would pop up. It's like, "Oh wow, that is accurate." And I also like to say this because one of the nicest guys I knew used to talk to me a lot, and then his son became great, and we stopped giving me information because he became too good. He was still a really nice guy to me, but the information stopped flowing. Tim Priesters, he was too high on the Notre Dame totem pole to talk.
Well, the parent, the disgruntled parent, like you said, if you're going to base, you can't base your source upon a parent, one way or another.
Generally, I will believe what parents say about anybody but their own son.
That's a great.
I'm not saying I'd run with it, but like,
Unless they're
usually
talking about.
if it's a critique of your own son, unless it's negative, and I mean like my son is not playing very well right now, then I'll buy it. But I think you got to run a lot of that stuff through a filter, and we all do that.
I think any parent that says what the third stringer did great in practice and he's probably going to be starting is the number one person to not listen to in that, to Pete Sampson's point. Whereas, man, this is made up because CJ Carr is not doing this, and I don't have a source with CJ Carr. Man, CJ's really struggling in practice. I'd be like, oh, really? No kidding. That would be, if it was coming from a CJ Carr camp, I'd be surprised to hear that. But you hear that from other people that are not. No. CJ's not struggling in practice, if anybody's wondering. I'm not breaking any news right there. JB, you had a funny story to end this segment?
Yeah, I do. From this most recent carousel when the Lane Kiffin pursuit was at its pinnacle, and it was all about Florida or LSU, or if he would stay at Ole Miss. And it was the Friday after Thanksgiving, and somebody from SEC country texted me and said, "Bryce, what's Lane going to do?" And I said, "He's going to go to LSU." I've got the timestamp screenshot. And he goes, "You sure about that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm sure." And he goes, "Well, talk to my Florida guy. He's really confident." And I'd been talking to this guy already. I was like, "Yeah, I'll hit him up." And Florida guy, he's like, "I'm telling you, Lane's a Gator." And I was like, "I'm just telling you, he's not. Like, you need to be prepared to pivot." And he's like, "No, he's a Gator. Like, when this is all done, I promise you, I'll show you why I've got the proof." And I said, "Well, you're going to have to do more than that to even get me to give this a second thought. And I still don't believe you. Let's make that clear." He goes, "Well, let's just say I've got a photo of Lane Kiffin meeting with Scott Strickland and this Florida booster from Miami that's super involved at an airport in Louisiana." Now, there is truth that Lane Kiffin met some officials at a private airport in a smaller Louisiana town during this process. The Florida people were not there. So, long story short, when this all ends, I'm like, "Okay, you said when this was over, you give me the photo. I want to see the photo now that you say exists of Lane Kiffin and Scott Strickland, the Florida mega booster, and these other people in this tiny Louisiana airport." And he said, "Well, I think the photo might have been AI." So he's betting this. He's like betting me, like we bet on this. And he's betting me, "Bryce, I'm telling you, Lane's a Gator." And I'm like, "I'm telling you, you better be prepared to pivot." And he's like, "I'm going to show you the photo." When push came to shove and it was all over, I was like, "Give me the damn photo." And he was like, "I think it's AI."
That's awesome. That is a tough one. I can't top that story.
Nope.
That's very good. We'll be back on Monday, February 16th with another episode of Irish Illustrated Insider. This one was a fun one, guys. I did know that we cannot rebrand. There is a Full House Backfield podcast. It's about the TV show Full House. So we will not be rebranding the four of us when we're out together. Until then, until Monday, for Jack Friedman, John Bryce, Pete Sampson, Tim Priester, I'm Tim O'Malley. Thanks for watching, listening. Irish Illustrated Insider.